Hello and welcome back to Burn Pile, the psychologically important episode 10. As I've mentioned before, I read somewhere most podcasts don't make it to episode 10, and no, I'm not going to verify that. It was just in a random comment somewhere, so it's real to me. If you're watching on YouTube, well, two things. Two things if you're watching on YouTube. The first, you can see I'm using a different background today. Because suddenly, winter ended. I was outside. We had some of the coldest days of the year where I live here in this past week. Just terrible. Just freezing cold. And then suddenly, a few days later, I was outside. I noticed I needed to take my scarf off. And then I needed to take my hat off. And then I needed to unbutton my jacket. And then I realized I had to change the background on this podcast for the video part. Because I think there's like snow and Christmas trees. Now, actually, oddly enough, in the last 7 days, we actually have had snow and quite a bit of snow. But it's also true that it's suddenly spring. So I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this background. It's a very, very gay, very pink background, but I like that. You've probably noticed the browser I use in this podcast has like a pink theme for new tabs. Maybe that's not even apparent on the pod itself. But that's the first thing. If you're a video watcher, and not just on YouTube, you'll notice that, but if you watch the Spotify video, or if you're some freak who's watching on BitChute or Odyssey or one of those other crazy things, if you're some weirdo watching there, or a normie on Spotify, you'll also see that. But if you're a YouTube normie, there's some more news, which is that this podcast probably won't keep going up on YouTube for very long. Hopefully it will. Maybe it will. I don't know. But we already got our first deletion. So because it was my first one, I got a warning, not a strike. That's why I'm able to upload this episode. Because if I got a strike, I wouldn't be able to upload for 90 days, I think. But this was the first one, so it's just a warning. They deleted the video, told me I was a very naughty boy for really nothing. I really didn't do anything wrong. I don't even think I violated their rules. It was for, they give you like a timestamp for the part it was. So you remember, I'm talking about episode 9, the last episode about Neil Gaiman. They gave me a timestamp for it, and it's just the part where I read what he did. I read the quotes from the Vulture article from one of his victims saying what he did. And that was like a sexually explicit content violation. Even though there's supposed to be an exception for like news. So, I don't know. I'm not going to change what I say. And this isn't really a YouTube channel. And the last video, it got almost 500 views. And it got maybe a little less than 40 hours of watch time. But almost all of that was people, like they'd search Neil Gaiman, or it would get suggested in one of their other videos, you know, on the right-hand side where it says what you should watch next. So they see the thumbnail, they click on it, and then they see it's a retarded talking cat, and they click off. And you can see the watch time. It's like, you know, 500 views, and then like, you know, 95 of them would watch for 3 to 6 seconds. And then, so like out of 100, like 95 would watch for 3 to 6 seconds. You know, somebody would watch for 10 minutes, and then, you know, maybe every 1 or 200 people would like watch the whole episode through, but wouldn't subscribe because this really isn't. I wouldn't watch this on YouTube either. Really, I love podcasts. I listen to tons of podcasts. I listen to tons and tons of podcasts that have a video component, and I listen 95% audio only because I listen while I'm out in the city going between my jobs or something, or just commuting on the train. That's when I listen. And then sometimes when I'm home, I'll have it on in the background. So maybe I'll put it on a second monitor or a tablet or something. And in that case, I will have video, but I'm not really watching the video. And that's how I sort of assume people will engage with this podcast because the video element, it's fine. It's better than just like a visualizer or whatever default thing you can do on YouTube for podcasts. I think YouTube is trying to encourage audio only podcasts to use its service, and they include some stupid thing, or people just use a static image of their podcast art or background or whatever. Um, what I'm doing, this is like called most people know a VTuber, but this is like an even lazier version. It's called a PNG tuber because it's just 4 or 5 PNG files of a cat, and the cat has like mouth open, mouth closed, eyes open, eyes closed, and they kind of just it plays with my mic and it blinks like dynamically using this free program. It's very, very easy. It takes no time to set up if you get the files, and you can just buy the files on Etsy for a few bucks for whatever you want. I found this stupid cat. So it's all very easy to set up. It's all very lazy. And then there are people who are like PNG tubers, and they do a ton of stuff. Like they make an engaging video with a bunch of editing, and they do all kinds of stuff, and like their OBS, recording is just kind of a part of it. And what I'm doing is basically an audio podcast. It's not really like a proper PNG tuber video. So basically no one who clicks on a suggested video for this is going to like it. And some people have. There've definitely been some subscribers, and that's been really cool. And I've got some cool comments and stuff. But it's not really, I'm not super heartbroken if the YouTube channel gets taken down. I do have a clips channel, and I've kind of stopped sharing things there because it's just been, well, I've been a little lazy, and I just thought it really wasn't that effective right now. If the channel does get nuked, which is probably going to happen sometime in the next, I'd be surprised. Let's say this, like, I'd be very surprised if the channel survived all of 2025. Maybe it will. Maybe it'll be totally fine. But I'd kind of be surprised if it did. And if it does get nuked, then I will reactivate the clips channel, and I'll try to post clips that are definitely going to be okay, clips that aren't as sensitive, and I'll re-engage that way. But for now, just be aware that if you're just subscribed on YouTube, this could just disappear. So go follow on Spotify, or if you like the video, or go on BitChute or one of those. Not BitChute, that's the really crazy one. I mean, it is going to be on BitChute, but if you are using BitChute, you're insane, as I talked about before. Go on Odyssey or Rumble. Yeah, Rumble's pretty popular. I mean, Rumble sucks my ass too, but Rumble's not going to take it. If Rumble takes this down, that would be ridiculous. Okay, I'm not talking about the Jays, all right, Rumble. So you can't take it down. Okay. But the best thing you can do if you want to stay engaged is to sign up for free over at burnpile.vip. That is my Substack. Oh, sorry, I was just taking a sip of hot choco. It's not quite spring. It's early spring. So I'm still sipping hot choco. Yeah, so go burnpile.vip. It's a Substack. It's all free right now. And that just makes it so you'll get emailed whenever there's an episode, and there'll be links to everything. And of course, if I do monetize at some point, I'll just do a bonus episode every week, and that'll be behind a paywall of like $5 a month or something. But even if I do monetize, if you're already signed up for free, you'll still get all the emails for the free episodes. So you can just do that. I also did one written post there. I'm thinking I'll probably do about one written post a month, and those will also just go to your email, just like any other Substack, if you subscribe there. All right, let's get into our first story today. Here's a good one. The New York Times has a story all about Bill Gates. And the story's title, I mean, you can't make this up. Like, if I were making a joke, if I were pitching like a joke story, like if there was like a Saturday Night Live like writer's room, but for like based retards, like the joke story, or not Saturday Night Live, but like The Onion or something. Like the joke story headline, the story title that I would do is what this one literally is. So you can't make this up. This is actually the title. This isn't a joke. The New York Times actually published this with this title. Here it is. Bill Gates isn't like those other tech billionaires. Okay, so here's what they say. The Microsoft co-founder and philanthropist is taking a break from the future to examine his past and mulling where the billionaires now fit in. So they're interviewing Bill Gates as some kind of like moral compass for like what a billionaire should be. Bill Gates was always understood, and you can forget about all the vaccine conspiracy stuff because I'm not even talking about that. I don't even discount that. The world is so fucked and everything is just so messed up that probably the worst of the Bill Gates conspiracy vaccine stuff, there's probably a lot of truth to it. I don't really know that. I'm not going to talk about that. But Bill Gates was always, always, always understood as being just. I think I was listening to like Zizek from years ago talk about this, about him being just a brutal capitalist, just awful. And I read the book by Paul Allen, who was his business partner, about just what a terrible human being he was. Just like Paul Allen was he co-founded Microsoft with him, and they were friends from like middle school. And Bill Gates tried to fuck him out of his Microsoft shares at a certain point. Like, he's a terrible, terrible guy. Microsoft was sued for monopolistic practices in the 90s, as they should have been. Like everything wrong with capitalism could be embodied in Bill Gates. And again, this is without even getting into the really weird stuff, the vaccine stuff. I guess I will get a little bit into the Epstein stuff. Hey, that probably triggers some YouTube attention, just mentioning Epstein. But, he was an Epstein guy. He was an Epstein associate. I believe he flew to those islands on the Lolita Express. Those islands, I mean, Little St. James, the island. And he was just a really, really, really bad guy. His wife at the time, Melinda, was warning him, like, it looks really bad that you hang out with Epstein. Stop doing it. And then when it all became public, she divorced him. Like, he's a bad guy. He's just a very, 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 very bad guy. There's nothing good about him. And the level of PR that he has is scary. Like, this is how you know that he's actually powerful. Because the way people talk about him, the way the stories are written about him, you can tell there is a sophisticated apparatus around him protecting him. I remember a few years ago, there was like a Netflix documentary about him, And I watched parts of it. I may have even watched the whole thing. And Paul Allen, who I said was the co-founder of Microsoft, and I read his book. I wanted to see where he would get mentioned because Paul Allen is deceased now. And they have this whole thing where Bill is they kind of skim over it a little bit. They make it seem like not as bad, like what he tried to do to his friend. And of course, they had stopped talking to each other for a very long time. And then they're asking him about that and asking him about his death. And they either have Gates or one of the people around Gates who they're interviewing separately say, yeah, it's one of his big regrets that they didn't like reconcile before his death. And this is all being treated like credulously by the documentary. Like this is what top tier PR is. It's like this monster is getting humanized in this way where they're like, they're taking this guy that he really, really fucked over and they're turning it into a story where it's about his regret for not reconciling with him. Like this PR is crazy. It's insane. So I didn't bother really reading this article. I just skimmed it, and it was exactly what you'd think it would be. Bill Gates is wondering about why billionaires are not as left wing as they used to be. But what really got me, why I wanted to bring this up in the first place, was the comment. The number one comment here. This is okay, so this isn't just some random comment. I try not to like dig deep into the New York Times comments and find some weirdo just saying something wacky. I try to go with like the reader picks. So this one is the top reader pick. It's also the top New York Times pick. So the staff and the readers thought this was the best one. 826 people recommend it. Let me read you this comment. He's worked like a dog for 20 plus years, meeting with health bureaucrats all over the world. Sound fun? Millions of lives have been saved or bettered. Give him the Nobel Prize. Seriously. Hating, quote, billionaires is sad and sadly wrong. Some do great stuff. Others are horrible creeps. Hating the creeps makes sense. Now, okay, so you can tell this person means that, like, Elon Musk is a creep. That their political enemy billionaires are creeps, which, yeah, they are. As I mentioned in episode 9, all men are. Being a billionaire is to have a tremendous amount of power. So, yeah, you're going to be a creep. But you point to your guy and you're like, yeah, he did fly on something called the Lolita Express. He did probably. Okay, well, this episode is going to be deleted, but I mean, Bill Gates, can I say this? I guess I can. I mean, I think my personal opinion is he probably fucked underage kids on Epstein Island. Yeah, I promised myself not to self-censor. I'm being super gay right now. Yeah, I think he probably fucked kids on that island. That's my opinion. And yet, even though we know that he was an Epstein guy, the top comment by New York Times readers who are supposed to be pretty well informed people, the top comment is like, we shouldn't hate Bill Gates. He's not one of those creep billionaires. Hate the creepy ones, not Bill. What did innocent Bill do? I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, Elon Musk, like, some stupid bitch just announced she's having his, like, 13th baby or whatever. I don't think Elon is, like, some kind of virtuous person in his personal life or whatever. I don't think Zuckerberg is. I don't think any of them are. I don't care. I don't really think about that or whatever. But yeah, if there was a story about how great Elon Musk was, I wouldn't type out a comment that's like, yeah, Elon's great because he's not a fucking creep. Give him the Nobel Prize already. I mean, it's really, really disheartening. Maybe it's just bots. Maybe it's bots who are it's like a mixture of New York Times influence and like actual bots or something. But here's the thing about the kind of, quote unquote bots that someone like Bill Gates would have. Because remember, he didn't need to make like puff pieces about himself and and pay for interviews or whatever. That's Bush League stuff. This is the guy who got a Netflix documentary made about him that people were excited to see and paid Netflix subscriptions to see. This is next level stuff. So if he does a bot campaign, a quote unquote bot campaign, it probably looks like something like 2 years ago they start having they have 1,000 people sign up to the New York Times or whatever, and then start commenting regularly. A mix of like AI generated comments and maybe even like real people doing this. And this would all be very expensive and a very long project. And then when the article that his people who somehow influence the editors want to get made finally comes out, there's all these real users with real accounts who have been posting for years who go and upvote the comments so that the number one comment is, give him the Nobel Prize. He's not a creep. Those are probably like his notes, like his 2 bullet points. He's like, listen, I want to be a story in the New York Times. I want it to blow up. I want it to have lots of comments. And here's what I want the comments to emphasize. Number 1, should get the Nobel Prize. Number 2, not a creep. And I mean, have no evidence for that. I just made it all up. But I'm probably right. Even if I'm wrong, I'm probably directionally right. Okay, let's move on. Something fun now. Just a little quick one. Just a fun little story. New York Times again. This is an I love my gay son kind of story. Okay, so I love my gay son. That's what this story is about. So it's this guy, and he's gay, and he grew up with like a super super Christian dad, like an evangelical pastor dad. So it's all about that. And the reason I bring this up, so the whole thing is about how the dad, he believed, obviously he's an evangelical pastor, so he believed what the Bible, says about being gay, that you shouldn't do it. And then his son is gay, and his dad was journaling at the time. So his dad has all these journal entries about his gay son. And it's supposed to be this like, I think the typical New York Times reader would describe it as like a beautiful story of like a father's love, like overcoming his prejudice or something. But it's actually like hilarious. It's one of the funniest stories I've read in a long time. This is probably for me, not for everybody, but for me, this is one of those stories that's like, it's as funny as the goat story where the girl was the girl killed the other girl's goat. I did way back a few episodes ago. This, in terms of like actually making me laugh out loud as I read it, this is one of those for me. All right, so that's the setup here. So it's interspersed. He's like, at this time, I remember my dad this way, and at this time it was like this. Here's this journal entry from that time, and I can see he was really struggling. Like that's the whole thing. It's going back and forth, like with the journals. So, when he's like a young teen, his dad starts to think he's gay, and there's a journal entry from it. And it's so good. Let me just cue it up here. Oh no, it's not showing up. Hold on. I'm going to have to scroll for it. All right, I've almost got here we go. Okay, I found it. Yeah, this one, it doesn't reveal all the text. So the way I usually do these is I have like a Google Doc with a few of the key quotes I want to hit in an article in it. And it I have those quotes because I can just rapidly control F and get to where I want to be in the story. So like keywords, things like that. So this one I couldn't do that because they've like sectioned off the text. Like as you scroll, more text is revealed in like an artsy fartsy way. Because again, in their minds, the people who made this story is like an emotional roller coaster, and this is like a beautiful, like this is their like this is the most beautiful writing they've ever seen. They're trying to present it this way. Um, anyway, okay, but just listen to this. So he's talking about walking with his son. His son's like, I forget how old, something like 13. Okay, it says right here, 13. Um, so this is his dad writing in his journal. Evangelical pastor dad. All right, listen to this. He said that he was noticing how a lot of the guys had friends that they could be buddy-buddy with and mess around and do guy things with. He said his issue was he wanted to explore some things, horseplay and pranks, that he might be able to do if he had a group of guy friends. We processed that for a while and talked about how he needed some space to explore things like that, and that it was normal and healthy for a young man his age to do so. We bypassed our house and continued to walk. It was pretty clear he had more to say, but that he wasn't even sure what it was. I asked if he was wondering if he was attracted to groups of guys. Maybe a little, or some such response, is what he gave me. We wandered around a bit, and he said, at one point, I wondered if I was gay. I shared that I had met a man earlier in the week who said that he wondered the same thing at Timothy's age, and yet it turned out that he was straight and that he ended up marrying, etc. I don't know if I've ever been part of a sadder conversation. I was honored by Timothy's trust in me. I was encouraged by his sincerity and maturity. I was aware of your presence with us, empowering me not to react, not to recoil, and not to push, prod, or judge. Father, thank you for being with us. Okay, the next paragraph is what gets me. Here we go. And yet, I'm as sad as I've ever been, I think. Somehow, the process of dad dying was a different sadness. There's the sadness over my own sin and shame. There's the sadness over things like 9/11, but nothing quite like this. I was almost like jumping up and down, howling when I read this part. It's supposed to be about overcoming your prejudice and loving your gay son. And the journal's like revealing that process. but the, but the dad says there's the sadness of 9/11. But there's nothing quite like this. Son, listen, I love you, but you coming out as gay was worse than 9/11. They published this. I mean, if this were me, okay, here's the thing. If I were the gay son of this guy, and I had come to this place where my father accepted me and everything, I wouldn't be going for like a New York Times story about it, even if I wanted to do something creative. You could do something creative with it, and even with these journals. And if you were into the whole like gay propaganda thing, you could even make it about, you know, being accepted and all that. But to leave the quote in about 9/11, not have some humor in here, to just be like so self-serious and just be like, you know, look at this beautiful story of a family over, and like not address how funny the 9/11 quote is. Like, you have to completely change this whole story top to bottom. You just cannot be serious. You have to cut that quote out, or you have to make this much less serious, because you can't have the dad saying that it's worse than 9/11 when his 13-year-old says he wants to horse around with the fellas. But it gets better because all right, again, I think I can't control F to these. I'm trying to get to so as the dad goes on, he becomes more and more okay with with his gay son, and even like theologically, and it's all about like what's going on in the church at that time. Like the churches are splitting over this issue. It's a whole thing. They're still splitting over this issue, and this is going back like to the 90s and through time into the 2010s. But okay, there's a quote from somewhere here. Let's see if I can, if searching works. There's a great quote, because this is all about how the dad, he overcame it all. He becomes like an LGBTQ, basically activist, like an activist pastor. And so he's an activist now. He's a big like advocate for all the gay stuff. He's totally fine with it. He's like he like makes his church gay, or he splits off and makes a gay church or whatever. Um and okay, I don't need the exact quotes. God, they really fucked this up, making it so you can't read all the text. But eventually the dad says, am I retarded? Oh, sorry, I was searching for it. No, I'm not going to get the exact quote, but the dad goes into a into like an LGBTQ Christian thing, and he says like it was so great to be around so many people, who were like open about this and loved and still love Jesus. And he goes, there were some things I was uncomfortable with. For example, the polyamory. And it just goes to show, like, yeah, when you open this door, like, what the fuck is he thinking? Like, he's gonna have a gay son who's gonna be what? Monogamous? Hey, son, you can be gay, but you gotta save that little rosebud for marriage, buddy. Okay? That pink little asshole you've got? Listen, the Lord made that for your husband to enjoy. Like, what the fuck did he think was going to happen? This is what I really wonder. Like, you open the gates to this, and it's fine if you want to be gay or whatever. You just gotta, but you gotta leave the faith, or you gotta be like, well, I'm not practicing because like I have this thing in my life. I can't. That's fine. I totally get that. That's completely okay. But you can't just go into the church and open this up. Like, what do you think is going to happen? The pastor's like, yeah, I'm accepting my gay son, and all the gay things are fine. And then he's gonna have some like man in a dress in his church, and he's like, yeah, this is fine too. But that man in a dress, I hope he's in a committed relationship with like, what the fuck are you talking about? Actually, the man in a dress is probably like the most chaste person there, because they're not, no one's giving them any attention. So maybe that's good. He should have encouraged his son to be like an asexual, like trans kid then, if he wanted some purity. But he's like, yeah, I'm uncomfortable with the polyamory. And it ends with his journal, his like last journal. He says, I've got the quote here, like, thank you for making my son gay. Like, dear Lord, thank you for making my son gay. And it's like, okay, like, and this is all like the way the story is written. It's written so like if you're this is how far off they are. This is how they have like no theory of mind for like people who disagree with them. It's written as if like, hey, you know what? If a Christian who disagreed with this read it, they would realize how wrong they are because of how beautiful this story is. Like, it's written in this like unbelievably like arrogant way where it's like, how could you possibly not love this? All right. I enjoyed that one. But let's move on. I've got another video from Soft White Underbelly. Now, I've mentioned Soft White Underbelly before. I think a few times I've mentioned it. So, he goes out and he interviews drug dealers and prostitutes and pimps. So today it's a pimp Now, this was interesting to me. It kind of relates to the next story, so I'm going to kind of run these together. But he was interviewing. I was listening to a prostitute, and the prostitute says, like, yeah, you've got to. She says something like, you've got to give respect to the game god. Like the game being like, hooking or whatever. And I was like, what is going on? What is the game god? What is she talking? Like, that's just, these people are all half crazy and they all live in their heads. And by these people, I don't just mean prostitutes. I mean everyone on Earth. So who knows what somebody's talking about when they say game god? So, but then the next day, or even it might have been the same day, he interviews a pimp, and the pimp starts talking about it too. So let me bring up the pimp interview here. Just, I accidentally started playing it. It was too that was too early. Here we go.
I fell in love with it. I started learning the morals of it.
The morals of it. The morals of pimping out girls.
I wasn't moving right. And then I started learning the first rule of the game. What it say? Before you get yourself wait, what it say, B? Before you get yourself right with the game, get yourself right with God. You hear me? And I didn't know what that meant. And a lot of these motherfuckers, they don't understand that the game God is something real.
A lot of these motherfuckers don't understand that the game god is something real. Let's get into what not respecting the game god is going to get you. So we've got a story about this retard who joined the Peace Corps. Great story here. And thankfully, we can jump to all the quotes that we want. So there's this stupid retard, this lady, Lydia Lawrenson is her name. So she's got a little Substack here. Somebody had highlighted this on Twitter. Let me shout out the guy who I saw the tweet that made me aware of this. It's at Morlock P. Dogs don't have thumbs. He's the one who talked about how retarded this article was and got it on my radar. Okay, so Lydia Lawrenson. The time I joined Peace Corps and worked with an African HIV program for sex workers in Eswatini. Or Eswatini, I don't know. Part 1. There's no part 2 yet. This was published February 11th. Okay, so there's this dumb lady. So she wants to join the Peace Corps. So she goes to the Peace Corps and she says, here's a quote, "I asked Peace Corps to send me anywhere but Africa. Southeast Asia was my top choice." You know what? Hey, Southeast Asia would be my top choice as well. Doesn't sound too bad. Being in the Peace Corps in Southeast Asia, probably pretty cool. "I asked Peace Corps to send me anywhere but Africa. Southeast Asia was my top choice. Back then, it seemed important to Peace Corps recruiters that people not ask for this. So it was made clear to me that a location preference was a black mark, that it counted against me. This isn't a vacation," one PC employee said to me, with faint but obvious contempt. Anyway, they sent me to Africa. So that's funny. From the beginning, I like this. And again, these stories people have that I'm kind of calling cringe and stupid, if people would acknowledge the humor in them, write with a little self-awareness, they could probably do a lot better. They could probably write something pretty entertaining. They could prepare for the kind of ridicule that people like me will dump on them. But she kind of humorlessly here, anyway, they sent me to Africa. I said I didn't want to go to Africa. They sent me to Africa. So the problem is, you apply to the Peace Corps, and you're supposed to go like in a few months. You apply, they say yes, and you go in a few months. But she had a bit of a different problem here. Let me read the next quote. And I'm going to be jumping around in this. This isn't me just straight reading this article. It's very long. I'm just jumping around to some highlights here. But listen to this. Some people apply to Peace Corps and leave within months. My application process took 2 years, which is unusually long. The main reason it took so long was that years earlier, when I was a teenager, I was institutionalized for suicidal tendencies. There was a question on the Peace Corps application that asked if I'd ever been institutionalized. When I answered that question, I told the truth. I was then required to undergo a full mental health evaluation to determine whether I possessed the emotional capacity to serve in Peace Corps, which I passed. Um, uh, so we're taking Americans and sending them to random parts of the world to help. And, you need to be like, not, not incompetent, you know? You need to be able to not kill yourself when you face hardships, let's say. I mean, I think it's a good rule. I don't think she should have been sent. Probably would have saved everyone a lot of heartache if she wasn't sent, including her. But anyway, in between the 2 years of the application and departure, she became involved in the BDSM community. Shocking. Someone who was institutionalized for suicidal tendencies as a teenager later became interested in the BDSM community? You're kidding. I thought the BDSM community was all really healthy, well-adjusted people. Like in the Neil Gaiman story, where the Vulture made sure to tell us in parentheses that that everything would have been fine if they followed the BDSM rules, but because they didn't, Neil was a bad man. It does always seem all the stories that you ever read that mention BDSM in any way, it does seem like the most like vulnerable girls are getting involved with it. It does not seem positive, does it? But anyway, so she had been blogging as a BDSM lady, and this is where I need to do a little aside here. She also, before she did the blog, so she says, I first graduated and got my BA in 2004 when I was 19. Oh, because she's really special and smart. Soon after I graduated, I moved to Chicago and I started working in a local bookstore while writing on the side. I scored a cool internship with my favorite game design company, White Wolf Game Studio. So you remember White Wolf? They did like Vampire the Masquerade and like all those kinds of paper and pencil RPGs. When I was a little kid, I played White Wolf game in like the 90s. But White Wolf is famous for being really, really, really obnoxiously, like stiflingly, and I don't use this word lightly because it's definitely overused and it's cringe and gay to use it. But woke is what they are. Like really like crazy, like cartoonishly, insanely woke. And what I mean by that, so if you don't play paper and pencil RPGs, Vampire the Masquerade is it's just a game where you role play as a vampire. Like it's not that complicated. But like in modern times, it's influenced by, Anne Rice and all that kind of urban fantasy bullshit. Um okay, so of course in RPG books you have NPC characters, right? So I want to read you. So let's see. She said she joined in the in the aughts, right? So this would have been the time that I would not have been playing those games. So this is like 2004, 2005 she joined. Okay. I'm going to read you from the Vampire the Masquerade wiki a little bit about an NPC that they made. I think maybe after this time frame, but still it's very illustrative. Okay. This is an NPC in the game Vampire the Masquerade. Rudy. Rudy is a Gangrel anarch of Copenhagen, well known for championing progressive causes. He is a popular ideologue and activist. Okay, so they've got this black vampire in Copenhagen, and he's well known for championing progressive causes. Because if you're a teenager playing one of these games where you're having this power fantasy life as an immortal vampire, that's not enough. It's not enough that you're an immortal vampire and that you're really cool and you have super strength and you'll live forever. No, no, no. You also need to be uh, a hero championing social causes. Like, even in your fantasies, that has to be part of it. That's how retarded this all is. But okay, biography, I'll just read a little bit. A new player on the Kindred scene. Rudy commands an impressive following as an anarch representative for the oppressed and repressed minorities in vampire society. Okay, so even in these people's fantasies and daydreams, they suck. Can you imagine, like, being a vampire and having all this incredible power? Like, there's a reason that vampires are connected to, like, aristocracy, right? Just in people's minds. Like, there's Count Dracula popularizing it, and it makes sense. You think vampire, you think it's come to mean different things. It was like something monstrous. It evolved over the years. But when you're talking about like modern vampires, and by modern I mean like everything post Dracula, I guess, and certainly the urban fantasy stuff, popularized by like Interview with a Vampire and that, you're thinking like wealth and beauty, and it contrasts with the decadence of what they're doing, drinking people's blood. Like, that's the whole thing. Like in fiction, like that's kind of the whole idea of it, right? And then uh in this, like, you're it can't be that. It can't be like, oh well, I'm going to role play a vampire who sees human beings as cattle, and I'm going, oh no, 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 no. I'm going to be like this NPC that's in the book. I'm going to be an activist fighting for those who are oppressed in vampire society. Like, do you know how possessed you have to be to go play a dark fantasy game, and you need to do that? That's really crazy. But if you ever wondered who that appeals to, it's this lady here who joined the Peace Corps. Okay, so that's just a little aside, but let's go on with this story. Okay, so they send her to Africa after 2 years. They say, your brain is fine. You're not going to kill yourself, I guess. So we'll take a chance. But you are going to Africa, you dumb bitch. You're not going to Southeast Asia, where everything's cool. All right, so we got some different quotes here. Peace Corps runs different programs in different countries. In 2009, the only PC program, in this case Peace Corps program, in Eswatini focused on HIV/AIDS. Eswatini, then and now, has the highest HIV rate in the world. When I was there, 25% of the general population and 40% of pregnant women had HIV. All right, so let's move on. Now this one, here's a little incident that I liked. I remember a local situation widely reported in the Swazi newspapers. A Swazi husband had murdered his wife. He explained that he killed her because she wouldn't have sex with him. It transpired that she had refused to have sex with him after he was diagnosed with HIV. She was tested too, and she didn't have HIV. So she refused to have sex with him unless he used a condom, because she didn't want to catch HIV. And so he murdered her. So in my fantasy, I'm an immortal vampire fighting for, like, the gremlin vampires to get their rights or whatever the fuck. And in real life, she's in the Peace Corps, and she's in this hellish country, and like nothing, she can do nothing. She's totally powerless. She's like this, quote unquote feminist. She's probably blogging about like consent and BDSM and all this stuff. She thinks she's so sophisticated. Meanwhile, she gets there. And, okay, so this story happens. The husband kills the wife, right? Because she doesn't want to get HIV. All right, this became a matter of national conversation. Quoting from her again, was the man justified in killing his wife? Did she have the right to refuse sex to her husband at all, even if he had HIV and refused to use a condom? Swazi feminists obviously said she had the right to refuse him. Here we go with the fucking feminists again, am I right, fellas? They deplored her death, as did commentators from NGOs working to contain HIV. But a lot of Swazis said no, she had no right to refuse him. If I recall correctly, the local newspaper did a bunch of man on the street interviews and quoted one person saying, "What did she expect?" Now that, I got a little confession here. I was also there at the time, and that was May. That is a quote from May. You know, it was a different time. Would I say that now? Maybe. I don't know. But, we were all thinking it. I mean, you hear about this. The husband wants to fuck her. I mean, he's got HIV. She says, okay, you can fuck me while you have HIV, but you gotta wear a condom, mister. I mean, she got killed. What the fuck was she expecting, stupid bitch? All right, let's move on. The best part, by far, of this article, the reason it's actually here, is this quote right here. All right, now keep in mind this is the feminist BDSM writer, suicidal tendencies, White Wolf game designer. Okay. Nobody had the slightest idea what to do about the prevalence of older people having sex with very young people. Nobody, in any culture, ever knows what to do about this, as far as I can tell. Uh-huh. Well, yeah, it's a problem everywhere, but it does seem like the Western cultures that you abandoned, we're handling this a little bit better. But okay, anyway. Nobody in any culture ever knows what to do about this, as far as I can tell, but it was an HIV vector, so there was HIV money available. So at one point, a local HIV-related NGO purchased a billboard over the largest public transit hub in Eswatini, which said, quote, "Are you thinking of raping a child today? Think twice of the consequences." I saw that billboard dozens, maybe hundreds of times during my time in Eswatini. It faded into the background after a while. So this whole article, if you read the whole thing, the lady is retarded. She really sucks and she's an idiot. But she does show the complete ineffectiveness of everything they're doing there. It's all retarded that they're there. They're just pouring money into the country. Nothing's going to change. They do these little projects that don't make sense. They like half build a car wash so someone in the Peace Corps can get promoted to somewhere where there's air conditioning. And then the car wash never works and it gets rotted. And so at the end, she's kind of, she writes a report about that, about how they didn't really do anything and nothing really worked. Yeah, she has a quote talking about all these sorts of things. And she said, in this case, from what I could tell, the program did not work as advertised, but people very carefully weren't paying attention to whether it did or not, because it brought money into the community. This is actually a great observation, and I think happens with lots and lots of things. Things that don't have like a capitalist mission where they're there to make money. Things that have another mission end up just being money sinkholes for somebody to get money. Okay, so they weren't paying attention because it brought money into the community. I assume the program also provided status and positive feelings to the funder. She had mentioned a funder who was trying to get women out of sex work for basically his own like religious reasons. No one seemed motivated to audit the program in any serious way, so nobody did. My sense is that the majority of foreign aid programs are like this. That doesn't mean nobody is doing good work, but it means that the ones who aren't have little accountability. Yeah, correct. The Peace Corps is gay. It sucks. the people who are donating money to have sex workers get out of sex work. Here's the real problem. Okay, the people donating money and volunteering to have sex workers stop sex work in places like Africa, you know, they might be doing it for religious reasons, but it's the wrong religion. They're not respecting the game god. What they should be doing, if they wanted to actually fix these things, okay, if they were serious about making the lives of these women better, they would go in not as the Peace Corps, not as an NGO, but as a religious organization with missionaries, not Christian missionaries. Talking about game god missionaries. If you respect the game god, you got to get yourself right with the game god before you go out and play the game. Okay? You get some pimps there, get some, hey, and they're black too. It's easier than some white bitch telling you about condoms or whatever. Hey, listen, you know what's going to get you fucking killed out there in East Swaziland? You know what's going to get your ass fucking killed? Is going out there and listening to some white bitch tell you that that you got to make the guys use condoms. That's just going to get you killed, okay? What you need, you listen to one of the black pimps out there. You get the black pimps, they're already black. You send them to Africa, right? And you get them to get these women to an American standard of being pimped out. They do it as missionaries. They tell them the rules of the game. They tell them about the game god. They go in there and like, look, first, you know why this woman died of HIV? She wasn't right with the game god. Okay? That's the most important thing. You get right with the game god. I'm going to keep watching. I've been skipping a lot of the soft white underbelly pimp and hooker interviews. I'm going to get back into them. I'm going to see if there's more mentions of the game god because I can't stop thinking about the game god right now. Like, is this like an emergent religion? Is this a thing that's going to be studied? Like, are they're talking about God in general, but when they're talking about the game, he's the game god, or is it like a new entity? Like this is the game god. Like it's some kind of like I don't know Santeria thing or something. I don't know, but I cannot get it out of my head. The game god. I'm thinking about it all the time. You got to get yourself right with the game god. I've got a last story here from the New York Post. One more. We'll end it with this one. We'll do this and then we'll call it. God, all these auto-playing videos. I'm not even using Chrome, but I think on Chrome they've blocked the ability to stop autoplay on videos. But I'm not using Chrome, but even so, these auto-playing videos are annoying. But anyway, New York Post. Here's the headline. Trans migrant charged with raping 14-year-old boy in NYC bathroom. All right. A migrant transgender woman, wanted by federal immigration officials, allegedly stalked and raped a boy in Manhattan this week, the Post has learned. Nicole Suarez. Oof. Suarez is a rough one. I've never read the name Suarez, Suarez, in connection with anything positive. If I see Suarez in a news story, I know the crime is going to be horrific. Anyway, okay, Nicole Suarez allegedly followed the 14-year-old into the bathroom of a bodega across the street from Thomas Jefferson Park in East Harlem Tuesday and attacked him, police and sources said. The boy then left the bathroom and flagged down witnesses, who alerted police, the sources said. Okay, now they've got a picture of Nicole Suarez, and if you're just listening and you can't see the picture, The picture looks like the handsome Squidward from from SpongeBob. Like it's just an extremely like masculine face and like cheekbones and chin. It's like the most manly jaw you've ever seen in your life. It's like it's like a model, it's like a male model's jaw, just like manly jaw, but with like long hair and like eyelashes and like lipstick. um so yeah, looks really good. The kid probably wanted it. Suarez, 30, who was originally from Colombia, was arrested nearby the following day and charged with first-degree rape. All right. Suarez was wanted in New Jersey and Massachusetts at the time, and U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement had a detainer on her. A detainer on her, a law enforcement source said. The nature of the out-of-state charges wasn't immediately available. Now, let's get to the end, because you think this is a crime. You think this right here is a crime? This transgender person going into the bathroom and raping a 14-year-old boy? You think that's bad? Let me tell you about a real crime, all right? Because there's a real crime at the end here. A real crime right at the end of this. So I'm going to skip to the end. They're interviewing people on the street. Okay, now listen to this. This is the real tragedy in here. This is the fucked up thing. In fact, you know I talked about some serious things on this podcast. If you're sensitive, you know, this might be one of those times, hey, no worries. I'll see you in the next episode. If you're a little sensitive, you don't want to hear fucked up things, you know, just shut it off. You know, we got through the transgender guy raping the kid in the bathroom. We're about to get to something even darker. If you're sensitive, shut it off now, okay? Fair warning, all right? See you in the next one. No worries. Your mental health comes first. But all right, now listen to this piece of shit, okay? A nearby deli owner, not the store in which the attack occurred, said children come from the park to his deli every day to get candy and snacks. He was visibly shaken when he heard what happened. Oh my God, that is disgusting, said Aziz Jaime, 59, owner of 2234 Eastside Deli. He destroyed that little boy's life, he said. Hey, excuse me, you piece of shit. Hey, she destroyed that little boy's life.